Welcome everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to this week's weekly HOScale newsletter recap for the week of March 17th, 2025. If you're new to the series or to the channel, this is where we take a look at some of the newsletters or announcements in the HOScale community over the past week or so. Talk about some new things, any project updates of the sort. Really like making these, I'm glad you're enjoying them so far. As always, before we get into it, do me a favor and subscribe if you're new or if you find yourself coming back anyways. Completely free and helps me to grow the channel and make a couple dollars, so really appreciate it. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if you have any questions about anything in this newsletter, any updates that you know of that I may have missed, or if you just want to chat. Love going through those with you guys. We'll go ahead and start off this week with Tangent Scale Models. And in their monthly newsletter, they have a new announcement for March 2025. The Southern Railway's Gantt Manufacturing Company's bay window caboose, of course with lights, pretty standard tangent offering. There's a bit of history here on the real cars, and here is a lineup of all the different versions. We'll take a quick look at each different variation that they have highlighted here as well. Here is some history about the Southern Railway itself, as well as the 5 different variations offered in this run. Here's some history on the Gantt shops. There's a lot in here. Feel free to pause if you're interested in that, but I'll move on just to take a look at the models. All the lights are DC or DCC compatible, really nice with that same wand once again. The first variation we have is the original 1970 with interior lights. There's some history on that and the model. You can see that generator pickup on the second axle from the left, which is pretty cool. Next up, the 1979 Plus era with the FRA end light and interior lights once again. It's a nice paragraph on the road number specific details. And an image of this one here. You'll notice different markings, different tags on the cars, and of course the different variations called out with the FRA light in this case. Next up is the original 1971 version for local service. And the model. Biggest difference here that calls it apart is that yellow paint over the bay window. And the next variation I think is pretty neat is the repaint 1979 with solar that has solar panels on the roof. So you'll see on the side closest to us on the right, there's a little box and then some non-working solar panels though on the right side. So that's really sweet. I think that's cool. Not many manufacturers have come out with solar panels modeled on roofs of cars. And then we have a pair of Norfolk Southern versions that are painted for maintenance away ballast train service. And here are both of those. Very striking orange paint scheme that NS uses on its maintenance away of equipment. And here is a special repaint for the Chattanooga terminal. And next, a Southern Heritage sticker version. And then they do also offer many of the variations as undecorated kits. They come as completely disassembled kits, as you can see here, so you can paint and letter to whichever road number or even road name of your choosing. The one thing that you do need to supply that they call out are your own couplers. So typically you just pick up a pair of Cadies and put those in there and then you'll be all set. They also sell the pickup truck separately with the wires pre-soldered on in both standard or semi-scale variations depending on your preference. And here's a full list of all of the features on these models. Tangent, well known for their extreme attention to detail and for their cabooses as well. So this is another great addition to their lineup. And finally, they just do a quick shout out for some of the railroad museums that allowed them to measure some of the prototypes. And the sticker price for these models is $135, so if you pick them up through your local hobby shop, you should get a little bit of a discount on that, but definitely shop around for a good deal and get your pre-orders in if you're interested in these cabooses. That's all for tangent scale models for this week. We'll move on over to ScaleTrains next. Next up, we've got ScaleTrains. They start off with a brief announcement that their shipping price minimum will change from a $99 free shipping minimum to $399 minimum. Under that, you'll have to pay an $11.99 shipping fee within the US. So that'll apply after March 21st. So if you're looking to pick up maybe a single car or something beforehand and you still want to take advantage of that free shipping, go ahead and do that now before the 21st. But if you're fine paying that shipping cost, no big deal after that. And tonight is when the pre-order deadline is due for the SD7, SD9 announcement. Here are those models flashing by. We've talked about them for a couple of weeks. I do have the Southern Pacific 1518 pre-ordered, but that's the only one I plan on picking up. Here's a little bit about the details and road names and paint schemes if you haven't seen these before. But when this video goes live, you just got a couple hours left until the pre-order deadline comes up. You still will be able to waitlist if you want through ScaleTrains website, and sometimes they might have extra pre-orders available, but if you want to be safe, get that in by tonight. Moving on, a reminder that the next batch of CSX Heritage units, the ES44s, recently delivered. That's the ACL, LNN, and Monon. We talked about this also for a couple weeks. The first 5 are still in stock, and the next set of Heritage locomotives should be arriving early this summer. There's the list of those on their way in case you have any of those on order. And another batch of ES44s that recently delivered, the first CPKC units, 79375, the XCP, and 4805, the XKCS. I recently put up my review on these locomotives, very happy with them. They did sell out extremely quickly, so if you're lucky enough to pick one up, and there still might be some available, definitely take a look, shop around to just see if there's any in stores. Would definitely recommend these locomotives. There's a little bit of the history on the merger of the CP and KCS, which happened back in 2023. And these ES44s are the very first locomotives to deliver to the HO scale world in this new CPKC scheme. And then athearn has a GP38-2, the first one painted in that scheme, recently announced, and Rapido's got the first GP40 in that scheme as well. So look to see those being the next set of CPKC units to deliver. Additionally, some plastics hoppers delivered in the river counter line, the PS5820s. Here's a couple of those road names and paint schemes flashing by. Lots of different GE Rail Services versions in this run. Nice FRA striping on most of these as well. Good detail and lettering. Again, in the river counter line, you get all the train line hoses and extra accessories on the end. And in the Evolution series from Exact Rail, which ScaleTrains purchased a couple years ago, the Evans 4780 covered hoppers recently arrived, similar to a ScaleTrains operator or standard athearn line detail. Don't have those train line hoses at the end, but the rest of the detail is pretty standard. Here's a list of those road names and paint schemes if you're looking to pick up some of those as well. And the most recent run of SD40T-2 tunnel motors in HO scale recently delivered. Here's those different paint schemes, lots of Southern Pacific or UP patch versions. I have one of each of the Rio Grande tunnel motors. Very, very happy with them. I'm still on the fence whether or not I want to pick up even 2 more. They're currently sold out from ScaleTrains, so definitely shop around to find them still in stock. Mine were from Lombard Hobbies, but they're out of them at this point. There's all the road names and paint schemes, but again, another model I would absolutely recommend. You can check out my video for more details on those if you're interested. In N-Scale, that same model will be arriving this summer. If you're an N-Scale guy, check those out. And the pre-order deadline for a couple models, those last 3 we just talked about, the SD40T-2s and the 2 hoppers, expire at the end of this week on March 21st. So if you are looking to purchase these models from ScaleTrains directly, definitely take a look after the 21st to see if any open up that weren't paid for by pre-orders. And in N scale, their first release of the Trinity Reefers. These are the 7883 cubic foot variation, so the roofline icicles that were released first in HO scale. I got a couple of those, as well as the second release with the logo icicles. A little bit of a history on these, as well as the list of variations. The difference between the black and white lettering and the multicolored lettering on the Thermo King early versions is just on the Thermo King unit. You get the blue on there as well in the multicolored version. I had to do a little bit of digging, found that out. It looks pretty good. Of course, the second run of the Trinity Reefers is still in stock. Pretty limited availability from ScaleTrains with those. And they're also offering even more, lots of different patched variations in the next run of the Trinity Reefers coming up this fall. Another N-scale model, the Trinity RD4 hoppers from the old Fox Valley Models tooling. Looks pretty good, fairly modern hopper. Good offering from Fox Valley Models that ScaleTrains was able to keep alive. Here's a couple of those road names. Got BNSF and then those 4 as well. And same pre-order call out for those models expiring on March 28th for those 2 N-scale models. And finally, the Norfolk and Western Class J and HO scale, as well as the Powhatan Arrow passenger cars, should be arriving within the next week and should bill for all pre-orders through ScaleTrains, so keep an eye out for those cars arriving shortly. ScaleTrains will also be at the Rocky Mountain Train Show coming up in April, the 5th to 6th, so if you're in the area, definitely check them out there. And that's all for this week. We'll move on over to Walthers with their new product announcements for March. All right, welcome on over to Walthers' new product express for March 2025. First up, a new run of GP9s. This is the first time the Western Maryland version with the chop nose will be offered in plastic. Here's a couple of the undecorated samples on the right. These should deliver in spring of 2026, so a little bit ways out. There's a list of those features. If they do come with sound, they're with LockSound 5, and you can order them standard DC as well. So there's the first Western Maryland chop hood on the left, as well as the second Western Maryland scheme, different chop hood variation, with updated lighting as they call out as well. And here's a couple more road names. And nice to see they're also doing an undecorated version as well, offered with the chop nose Western Maryland version. We have 2 heavyweight announcements in the Proto line. First up, the 85-foot paired window coach comes lighted, full LED lighting on the inside, should deliver in the fall of 2025. There's some of the features there on the left for you. And here is a look at the road names. You'll notice we do have a green unlettered, sort of just normal Pullman colored car in the top left, and then the other road names, of course, lettered. And the second heavyweight model, the 36-seat diner, similar setup, full interior LED lighting on the inside with an estimated delivery of this fall with the exact same road names offered in this. You could buy one of each and then have both in the set. Now on to some mainline models expected in the summer of 2025. The 50-foot ACF exterior post plate B boxcar with dreadnought ends, quite a long name there. There's the features there in the top left. Mainline release, once again, not all the train line hoses, but still good quality overall. Helps you to fill out a unit train at a much more reasonable price if you wanted to pick up a few of these. And a cornerstone model expected in the spring of 2025, so coming up fairly soon here, the plastic pellet plant. Here's a look at what's included in the kit there, as well as the sizing and some of the features. And along with that plant, we have the background building as well, also estimated of spring 2025. Not sure on the date, but that's coming up fairly soon as well. But there is a look at that one as well. And final announcement, also in their Cornerstone line, the Vintage Brick Warehouse, also very neat. You can do some very nice weathering on this model. Of course, comes nice brick color. So that's all we have in terms of the new product announcements from Walthers. We'll move over to their e-update next. All right, welcome to their e-update from Walthers. Same tariff notice about increasing costs starting March 7th, so that did just happen. All of the pre-orders before then remained at the same price, but just a reminder in case you missed that from last week. First highlighted model, their mainline 40-foot USRA boxcars. Limited release, all of Walthers' models are marketed as limited release because they only do the road numbers one time. Here's a look at that one if you're interested in modeling that era. And a model we just talked about, the new tooling of the chop nose GP9s in Proto. So there's another look at the production sample of that model. And another Proto model, the 52-foot NSC single hood cushion coil cars. The coil loads are sold separately, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's okay. Not too much money for that. You can drop those in, take out the hood, and drop them right in there. Looks really sweet. And next up, their Seam Master containers. These are the 40-foot model. These are now in stock as well. A couple different row names. Definitely look to expand your 40-foot container fleet with these. And an N scale, a nice Mardi Gras modeltrains boxcar. It's a 60-foot double plug door boxcar if you're interested in picking up that in N scale. And finally, a pretty neat HO scale model, this Preorder Corsair sailboat set. Looks really sweet. They do make a lot of other HO scale vehicles. I don't own any yet, but I'll probably be picking up a couple in the future just because they look pretty nice. But that's all we have here from Walthers. We'll move on over to a quick update from Bachmann. All right, in Bachmann's newsletter, just two models highlighted. First up, the USRA 060 locomotive with smoke. Unfortunately, this model does only come DC and not DCC ready or with sound. So here's a little bit of history on that locomotive itself and a look at the different offerings in this run. Just a couple, pretty good for a starter set if you're just starting out in DC. And then a couple more here that have been in stock just a little bit longer. Here's a look at those features. Again, you'll see the DCC is not included whatsoever. Other than that, pretty standard Bachmann offering. And luckily for us, we do have a couple with DCC equipped with Economy. There's a couple different offerings, a little bit different in this. A couple extra road name specific features. Of course, it comes with a little higher price point if you're interested in picking these up from Bachmann. They also have a quick video on that. And here is a list of those features on that model. They did some other new model updates. Nothing too big in this. We'll cover anything else that comes up later on. But that's all here from Bachmann. We'll move on over to ClassOne Modelworks next. From ClassOne Modelworks, we have a couple new arrivals. The first one being the ARI 5200 hopper cars. We took a look at all the schemes in a previous newsletter a couple weeks ago, but we had a smaller shout out of 3 of the paint schemes, so we'll take a brief look at them here. First up, the CIT group with the CITX reporting marks. Next, the Crab Orchard and Egyptian. Pretty sweet there. That's a KCS patched unit. And here is that KCS unpatched as delivered version. ClassOne's next model now in stock is the second run of their 86-foot high cube box cars. Here's a couple of those paint schemes. No additional newsletter or shout out on these units, but there's a lot of variations, new paint schemes in this run. And finally, the GSC Heavy Duty Flatcars, which we've seen before in their past newsletters. We had a few additional paint schemes to shout out with different road-specific details you can take a look at. Here's the NYC, the Delaware and Hudson, and finally that Penn Central. That's all here from ClassOne ModelWorks. Check out these models if you are interested in them. Pretty high levels of detail, of course, all that road-specific detail. I don't own any ClassOne ModelWorks models yet, but I'd like to pick some up, especially their TFT well cars in the future. That's all here from ClassOne. We'll move on over to a quick shout out from Broadway Limited. Over in Broadway Limited's newsletter for this week, main highlight, the order deadline has been extended for the F3 and F7 HO scale run. That's pushed back until April 10th to give you more time to order these models. They do have some new renders of the Reading and Northern and ACWR versions of the X Norfolk Southern executive units. So here are some of those shots now. These look fantastic. Love the details and the colors of these units. And of course, you can still pick up the full set of the Norfolk Southern units in their Norfolk Southern paint. Ken also put out a nice video with a couple members of the team talking about the models here in the list that recently delivered. So the Berkshires in HO scale, as well as the N scale run of these F3s and F7s. Lots of museum versions in that, as well as the Kenefick business cars. Those should be on their way. So next couple weeks or so, start seeing those in stores. I'm very excited for mine. So keep an eye out for that as well. And finally, just a couple updates from Rapido. First up, the HO scale SP Dome Lounge cars. Haven't heard much about these in a while, but these are them in progress in the paint booth. I know a lot of people are waiting for these pretty eagerly, but there are some shots for you to keep you entertained in the meantime. And finally, just a couple new CAD renders of some GP38s from Rapido. Here's the CPKC number 2000, the first GP38 painted in that scheme, as well as the PRSL GP38s with the dual control stands. There's number 2001 on the right. These look great, tons of extra features. They're just some new models in case you have these models on your radar. For me, I might pick up CPKC 2000. I'm very, very happy with the ScaleTrains ES44s recently delivered, and those are even more special because those were, of course, the very first two painted in that scheme. So maybe I'll wait for a couple more to come out. But very nice model to see Rapido doing. The GP38 and athearn will also be releasing the GP40 in mid-2026, so long ways to wait for that model. But that is all I have in terms of updates and newsletters for this week. Hope you enjoyed, had a pretty good time making this one. A little bit of a channel update. The next couple of weeks might have this weekly update video posted on Tuesday evening instead of Monday evening just because of some personal life craziness. Same content as usual. Not a lot of upcoming order deadlines to be aware of coming on those Mondays, so no worries there. If you did make it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Really appreciate it. Helps me to make a couple dollars, so thank you very much. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if you like this video or just want to chat or any questions, or maybe I missed something. Feel free to drop that in the comments. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.